Welcome to Module 3 of a 5-part overview on organic record keeping. In this module, we will cover the basic information needed to meet organic certification regulations and build your organic system plan for the crops and wild crop scopes. We highly recommend viewing Module 1, Getting Started, where we introduce the core data you'll need to begin building your record-keeping system. Also highly recommended is Module 2, Data Recording, where ideas and tools are shared to help make collecting and managing that data easier and more efficient. Let's get started. We will cover several topics in the overview, including a quick review of some records from previous modules, specific records needed for the crops and wild crop scope and why, information needed for every scope, various possibilities for designing your system while keeping in mind the flow of your operation to make record keeping streamlined. Crops and wild crops records encompass many processes. We will briefly touch on them here, then look more in depth at these processes later in the video. In Module 1, we discuss the materials list in more detail. This list becomes part of your OSP. This is a good place to start to understand all inputs you use on your farm and identify if that product is allowable in organic production. Also mentioned in Module 1 was a list of all organic and non-organic seeds and suppliers which need to be kept for each year. From this list, you will calculate the percentage of organic seed you use to answer a question on your OSP. If you save your own seeds, a harvest record will need to be kept for each seed by year of harvest. Once you are certified, all seed you save are considered organic for your use. Perennial plants need to have a record as well. Certified organic perennials can be harvested the first year and sold as organic. Non-organic plants can be purchased and used, but they will need to be grown organically for 1 year on your farm before any harvest can be sold and labeled as organic. Records of purchase, planting location, and harvest need to be shown for organic and non-organic perennials. Receipts. Save them all each year. These are not submitted with your OSP, but could be asked for at your inspection. These show where and when you purchased a product, a plant, a seed, or any input. You are probably saving these for tax purposes anyway. In Module 2, we talked about creating a map of all the fields or your facility to be certified. These can be hand-drawn, they can be put in a spreadsheet, or from a Google image. Specific information like the name of the field, a north compass arrow, the size of the field, the crops to be planted, and buffer zones all need to be shown on your field map. In Module 1, we also touched on field histories and why they are needed. This brings us to production records, which become part of your field history. It also includes details to show rotation, application of supplements, mulching, planting dates, and much more. Basically, anything done to the land to be certified needs to be included in your production records. Sometimes this is referred to as field activities. Harvest records need to include quantities and location from the field harvested. Storage information is needed if you store crops. All sales information should be kept from all sales channels. Records should be kept in such a way to allow for traceability and mass balance. Traceability means a sale can be traced back to the seed. A mass balance confirms that the total production of your crop doesn't exceed a reasonable harvest for what was planted. There is reasonable leeway here, as production quantities can vary, but within a reasonable amount. If you produce on-farm compost that includes animal manures, there are specific requirements for turning it into organic compost. Records that you keep will show the composting process meets the criteria for your compost to be used without any restrictions. Without the proper composting records, compost that includes animal manure is considered raw manure and has restrictions on its use. 100% plant-based compost does not carry any restrictions. We talked earlier about traceability. Traceability is important to show. Your record should allow for a trace back from the purchase or the harvest of the seed to the selling of the crop to include every step of the growing and harvest process. This process uses multiple records to follow a crop from seed to sales. This is to ensure organic integrity of the product. Wild crops, although a separate scope of production, require many of the same records as crops. A few additional requirements include that verification of the land has not had any prohibitive substances used where harvest is taking place. Records for wild crop harvesting have to show that the harvest has not caused any destruction to the environment and that sustained growth is taking place. Let's look at some of these required records in more detail. Production records are a large portion of the data required. Because this information is recorded as the season progresses, sometimes it's the hardest data to capture. Fortunately, there are several overlaps and much of the production data can be captured simultaneously. For instance, crop rotations, they need to be shown. They can be reflected in your field history data or your maps from year to year. Field activities need to be identified. Activities such as soil preparation. When did you till or broad fork? What input, like maybe lime or compost, was added to the field? This information can also be added to a field history. This information can appear in any one of several locations: a journal notebook, a seed list with planting location information, or a map showing the field, crop, and date planted. Weeding. Although a mundane or maybe a therapeutic task, it needs to be noted somewhere. Include the date, location. If you have farm help, ask them to record it in a notebook, a journal, on a clipboard with their initials. Do you mulch your crops? The type and source of the mulch should be listed on your materials list and verified its use in organic production with your ACA. List the date that you mulched that field, what field it was, and with what mulch. And you can record that in any of the ways previously mentioned. While you're weeding or mulching, did you notice some pests? Keep a record of the pests you encounter in your journal on a pest management chart or spreadsheet. Write down the date, what the pest is, the location, and any actions taken, and if so, who did what. Weather conditions are not required, but it is good to note somewhere, as it could lead to understanding the reasons for plant production, pest infestations, and water needs. All harvest information needs to be recorded with date of harvest, quantity, and location where it was harvested. You don't have to create this all on your own. There are many templates online, including those available at nofanh.org/recordkeeping to get you going. These can all be changed to fit your production style and preference. Let's take an even deeper dive into soil prep and planting. There are many ways to track this data. You will need to work out the best approach for you. Start with one way, see how it works, and know that you can change it, improve it, and get it more streamlined. The best way to start is by using a system or process that already exists and building on it. Do you keep a log of what you applied to a field? Is it noted on soil test results on a chart? Do you include what you are planting on a map? Add the date planted, how much was planted, and you now have a record of planting activity on your map. If you want to add that data to a spreadsheet for easy reference next year, you can. Maybe the planting location is on your seed list with quantities planted and the date. It's the same information kept in a different way. Find what works for you and keep it simple while still gathering the required data. And as you go, you will find what information will be useful to you next year when you go to do your crop planning and sales projections. Weeding per se doesn't have a requirement, but it is considered an activity and should be recorded. Maybe you heavily mulched and there is little weeding. That's great. When looking back at your records, you might find you are spending large amounts of time weeding an area. Making a note that tarping, a heavy cover crop, or a renewal of mulch might be in order for that field in the future. We have to keep records for organic certification. Thinking about how you, the farmer, can use that information for better planning and business decisions makes keeping good records well worth the effort. Making the most of a requirement to improve and support your farm business is never wasted effort. Pest management is something we all wish we didn't have to deal with. This is not something we might intentionally set out to do on a specific day. It is most likely something that you notice while planting, harvesting, or mulching, or performing some other task. However, as any farmer that has been farming for more than a week knows, you are always on the lookout for the pesky things. This is why and when it is helpful to record weather. Did it just rain for a week? Is there a drought? Is it just plain humid? This will help you track the pests and disease. When you find these issues, note the date, what was found, and where. It is very important to note your action. No action is an action. Write that down. If you're going to use a product, something as simple as soapy water, make sure it is an approved substance, and make sure you understand any restrictions and record how you met those restrictions. For this, a column can be added to your materials list of what the restrictions are and how you will meet them. If a product is not already on your materials list, call your ACA before you purchase or use it. They will need to add it to your materials list and might alert you to any restrictions. Harvest and sales are both vital components of farm management that ensures transparency and efficiency in your farming operations. First, let's talk about the harvest. Keeping detailed records of what is harvested, where it was harvested from, the date, and the weight or count is needed. This not only helps in tracking your yield, but also in assessing the productivity of specific fields. When you capture field activities that have been mentioned, from crop rotations to inputs, this comprehensive documentation aids in understanding what methods yield the best results. Finally, it's essential to maintain thorough harvest and sales records. This will help verify the amounts grown and sold, ensuring traceability and facilitating mass balance audits, which are done by the inspector at the time of your organic inspection. By recording these details, you can streamline your operations, enhance accountability, and ultimately drive better business decisions while meeting organic certification requirements. Now, let's talk about data collecting concerning storage. Consider these questions. Is your crop stored? If so, where is it stored? And what are you storing it for? The storage of your crop will include several records covered previously in this video. Your materials list should have what containers are used for harvest, transport, and sales, what cleaner or sanitizer you use at your wash pack station. Storage and wash areas should appear on your farm maps. Finally, think about the specifics of your storage process. What is the turnaround time for stored products? Are you harvesting for a market, or is it a long-term winter storage? For longer storage, you will need an inventory record. These elements are vital for maintaining the quality of your produce and ensuring traceability. The last of the harvest and sales records is the actual sales of your harvest. Keep sales reports and invoices that list what items are sold at different markets. All your sales should be kept by sales outlet and product. Along with your previous records by field and crop, an inspector will use this information for a mass balance. You can also use this information to help plan for next year's seed purchases and crop planning based on actual sales. Let's take a few minutes to talk about compost, the noun, that's made on your farm. Compost comes up many times in conversation, and it's valuable to have clarity. Compost is made up of natural materials. The composting process is ultimately the same no matter what materials are used. The materials decompose and create a rich soil compost for growing. The regulations and how the process is handled are based on the materials. If the materials you use are 100% plant-based, the final compost does not have any restrictions on use. However, if the materials you use to make on-farm compost contain any animal manures, this is when the restrictions apply to both the process of composting and the use of the compost product. The use of animal manure must follow a specific protocol for it to be called compost in organic production. These protocols are laid out in USDA Organic Regulation 205.203C2. If this protocol was not documented using specific data required by the regulation, then the product produced will always be considered raw manure, no matter how long it sits, how many times it is turned, or how much it looks like soil. Raw manure can be used in organic production, but it comes with restrictions with its usage from application to harvest. Often, raw manure is applied to planting areas in the fall, allowing for plenty of time from application to harvest during winter months when nothing is growing in New Hampshire. If you purchase compost from a farm or composting facility, it is a good idea to ask them if they keep records and if they are an approved compost facility with your ACA, your accredited certifying agency. Verify that yourself directly with your ACA. What the facility or farmers consider compost might not be considered compost within organic regulations. Also note, municipal waste is often not allowed as material in organic compost. Ultimately, you as the organic farmer need to show that you met the regulations. So confirm all compost use with your ACA before purchase and application onto organic fields. Your organic certification could be at risk, meaning a 3-year wait for recertification. The ACA is there to help you. This is when all your efforts to collect data can shine. Traceability is often called a traceback. With all your efforts to record data, a traceability, a path from purchase seed to sales of product can be shown. This validates your processes, your efforts in data collection, and ultimately your certification. This all takes place during your inspection. Preparing this information for the inspector on-farm inspection is best done ahead of time to minimize your time during the inspection as well as the inspector's time. Let's take a minute to talk about the wild crops scope. This scope includes things that are wild foraged, meaning not in a cultivated setting. For instance, mushrooms, fiddleheads, wild foraged herbs, crops that are not planted in specific areas that are tended by a farmer. These are plants that are allowed to grow wild. All the records discussed so far can apply to wild crops as well. A few additional records for wild crops are needed. These additional records for wild crops, which is sometimes referred to as forest farming, is a description of each area where you will be harvesting from, how you plan to manage the ecosystem and sustain the environment in that area, a list of rare, threatened, or endangered species in the area, and then verification from the landowner that no prohibitive materials have been applied to the land or waterways for at least 3 years, 36 months. As you might have noticed, there is overlap of necessary data for every scope. Here are a few requirements that are consistent for all certification scopes. If the land where you are operating is under lease, a lease rental agreement must be included with the OSP, the Organic System Plan. Soil tests, although not required, are highly recommended for many reasons. If you have them, include them with your OSP. Water tests are required for products that are washed or processed. All receipts to show when and what was purchased need to be available to the inspector if asked for. All products that carry a label must have the label approved, including case and box labels. Fresh produce that doesn't carry a label, like a head of lettuce, without packaging, doesn't qualify here. If it is packaged, it should have a label. Your ACA can give you their requirements for labeling. Data needed for an audit trail, traceback, and mass balance must be made available to the inspector. Producers provide the records that allow the inspector to verify the traceback and mass balance process and confirm the accuracy of the numbers. MOSA has an excellent article about traceback and mass balance. It can be accessed via the QR code on this page or by going to mosaorganic.org. We will briefly discuss each of the data collection points that are needed for every scope. If you lease land for crop production, livestock, or a processing facility, your organic system plan, your OSP, must include documentation from the landowner describing any prohibited substances applied to the land within the previous 3 years. If this area is shared, for instance, a kitchen, documentation needs to show that no commingling of non-organic product or substances occur. While soil testing is not mandated by organic regulations, it provides valuable insights into the necessary nutrients for production fields. When you apply soil nutrients, a soil test will demonstrate your commitment to environmental responsibility. It is essential to ensure that you do not overapply any nutrient, as this could harm the environment and lead to unnecessary financial costs. Water testing is also not mandatory for growing organic crops or livestock. If you wash produce using a private well, then you will need to get a water test to follow produce safety rules. For any processing that uses well water, testing is required in New Hampshire. Check with New Hampshire Extension for more information. Receipts. Those small slips of paper that often end up in crevices and hard to reach spots. Find a convenient location and designate that area to organize all your receipts. You will need them for organic certification, farm business records, and tax obligations. Investing time to establish a system and action plan for managing your receipts is worthwhile. All labels must be reviewed and approved by your ACA so that your products comply with organic certification standards and helps to maintain the integrity of the organic label. Your ACA makes sure that your labels meet specific requirements and labeling laws of the USDA Agricultural Marketing Service. You can access this requirement at the AMS website provided. The review process is not just a formality, but a key part of maintaining transparency and trust with consumers. The product label with the USDA seal ensures that all organic claims are accurate and verifiable. We have mentioned traceback, audit trails, and mass balance several times. The farmer does not need to perform these. That is for the inspector to do at the time of inspection. What the producer needs to do is provide the data to the inspector from the records you have been keeping. The better your data, the easier the process for the inspector, and the less time used during the inspection. For more information on what these processes are, follow the links provided. Again, you as the producer just need to collect the data. The inspector gets to do the math. Yahoo! New Hampshire producers can receive certification in any of 4 organic scopes via 8 accredited certifying agencies. Using the QR codes, 3 of the local ACA handbooks are listed here, as well as links to the USDA Organic Regulations and the handbook from the National Organic Program. NOFA New Hampshire's record-keeping webpage is another resource for ready-made templates and ideas from farmers for farmers to create your record-keeping system. Finding the right approach that suits you and your operation is the next step. Unsure where to begin? Start by selecting one specific piece of data. For instance, you could choose the material list or seed list. Being open to exploration and adaptation can help you develop a customized system tailored to your needs. This video and many other resources are available at organictransition.org and nofanh.org/TOPP. Follow the 4 Farmers navigation. Thank you for watching today. Also, don't forget to explore our top webpage at nofanh.org/TOPP for more resources and information. Your success in this journey is important to us. So let's continue to connect and build this organic farming community together. This video is sponsored by the Transition to Organic Partnership Program.